across a book a few weeks ago in my library. I didn't even know I had it. And here's the book, The 5 Points of Calvinism, Weighed and Found Wanting. Then you have John Calvin on one side of the scale being outweighed by John 3:16. And it's written by George Bryson. He says on page 14, explanation before evaluation. Thus it should be obvious that without a clear and accurate explanation of the 5 points, a fair and scriptural evaluation is not possible. Therefore, in this next section of the book, the first of 2 major sections, I have attempted to allow, as much as possible, 5-point Calvinists to explain what they have in mind when they speak about such doctrines as total depravity and unconditional election. Well, it didn't take long to see that he couldn't explain the 5 points without building straw men, that he can later knock down in the 5 points refuted sections. I want to take on one of these straw men in this video. I may do more videos on this book in the future, but we'll see. In the section, The 5 Points of Calvinism, Irresistible Grace Explained, page 53, George Bryson says, The rub is that while we are promising salvation to all who repent and believe, we are supposed to know that many of them can't and are not supposed to repent and believe. Lorraine Bettner says that as the bird with a broken wing is free to fly, but not able, so the natural man is free to come to God, but is not able. Then Bryson says, some freedom. I doubt many Calvinists wish to dwell on this point. I run into this same straw man all the time on YouTube. My favorite goes like this. The Calvinism God is like a father that takes his daughter out into the middle of a lake, ties her hands and feet, then tosses her into the water. Then he starts commanding her to swim. If you don't swim, you'll drown. This command is mocking her because obviously her hands and feet are bound, so she cannot swim. So she drowns while the Father mocks her. And this is supposed to represent what the Calvinist God is doing to the unelect sinner by commanding him to repent. And to show this is the foundation of Bryson's argument, let's turn ahead in the book. We've moved ahead in the book to a section titled The 5 Points of Calvinism, Irresistible Grace Refuted, page 96. According to Calvinism, the natural man cannot have faith through which he might be saved. This, however, is like saying to a man without a hand, please reach out with your hand and take this gift. If you or I were to do this, knowing the man had no hand, we would be considered very cruel indeed. We would be mocking the handless man. But isn't this just what the Calvinist is saying about God? Some Calvinists would contend that the unregenerate can choose evil, but evil only. But this is like saying the blind man can only choose not to see. Some choice. In fact, the blind do not choose not to see. They have no choice in the matter. So the unregenerate, according to Calvinism, does not really choose to refuse. He simply does the only thing he can, and that is to refuse. According to Calvinism, we can no more blame the unelect for being lost than we can legitimately blame a man born blind for his blindness. Is God teasing the unelect? This is, in effect, what the Calvinists are saying to the unregenerate unelect. But here is the problem with Bryson's reasoning and those that debate with me on YouTube. They have God offering and then denying to people something they really, really want very badly. Here is an example. This is our dog Ethel. She really wants the piece of chicken, but we are teasing her with it by offering it to her, then not letting her have it. Here, you want the chicken? Come and get the chicken. Nope, can't have it. But look what happens when we offer her something that she doesn't want. And by the way, just so you'll know, we gave her the chicken. Good girl. There is no teasing when you offer something that is not in the least bit desirable to the one you are offering it to. That is what total depravity is. God is commanding sinners to do something they have absolutely no desire to do. This is not at all like a blind man who would love to see being commanded to see or die, or like the daughter that would love to spread her arms and swim to safety, but cannot because they are bound with rope, and being commanded to swim or die. No, a more accurate description is little Ethel. She loved the chicken, and that represents sin. But she turned her nose up at the dog biscuit, and that represents the gospel. She didn't want it. You all need to understand, it is about desire. It is impossible for God to mock or tease the unelect, because they have no desire for the gospel that is being offered. In fact, what is more likely to happen is that they will become angry that they are even bothered with it. There is nothing physically hindering them from coming to Christ. They are not restrained or held back in any way against their will. Yes, it is true, they are bound in sin, but sin is a velvet chain that holds them. They love their condition and hate anyone that would try to rescue them from their bonds. Now, Bryson is disingenuous by just taking this quote about the little bird with a broken wing. Now, here is the book that Bryson got the quote from, The Reformed Doctrines of Predestination by Lorraine Bettner. And we find this quote on page 62. As the bird with a broken wing is free to fly, but not able, so the natural man is free to come to God, but not able. How can he repent of his sins when he loves it? How can he come to God when he hates him? This is the inability of the will under which man labors. Jesus said, "And this is the judgment, that light is come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, for their works were evil." John 3:19. And again, "Ye will not come to me, that you may have life." John 5, verse 40. Man's ruin lies mainly in his own perverse will. He cannot come because he will not. Help enough is provided if he were only willing to accept it. Paul tells us, "The carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can it be. So they that are in the flesh cannot please God." Romans 8:7. To assume that because man has ability to love, he therefore has ability to love God, is about as wise as to assume that since water has the ability to flow, it therefore has the ability to flow uphill. Fallen man sees nothing desirable in the one who is altogether lovely, the fairest among 10,000. He may admire Jesus as a man, but he wants nothing to do with him as God. And he resists the outward holy influences of the Spirit with all his power. Sin and not righteousness has become his natural element, so that he has no desire for salvation. Now, I do wish Bettner would not have used the example of a bird with a broken wing. Instead, I wish he would have made up an example of a bird that hates to fly, although he is perfectly able physically. But no amount of coercion or begging can make him spread his wings and fly, even if it means his death if he doesn't. But if George Bryson would have been honest, he would have went on to explain what Bettner meant, which Bettner more than adequately explained. But then Bryson would have destroyed his own straw man, and there was no way he was going to do that.